Thank you for joining today's conference call with Governor Andrew Cuomo. I would now like to turn it over to Governor Cuomo.
Hi, guys. Good afternoon. I have Melissa DeRosa, Robert Mahica, Beth Garvey, Kelly Cummings on the telephone, Dr. Howard Zucker. Let me give you the COVID numbers for today. Positivity 2.97. That is very good news. 43 New Yorkers died from COVID yesterday. That is bad news. But in this bizarre world, it's relatively better than many other days we've had. They're in our thoughts and prayers. 887 in ICU, 563 intubated. Positivity by region, 4.8 Western New York. Next closest, 3.7 Mid-Hudson, 3.7 Long Island, 3.3 New York City, 3 Finger Lakes, 2.29 Capital Region, 1.89 Mohawk Valley, 1.7 North Country, 1.5 Central New York, 0.8 Southern Tier, statewide 3.1. In New York City, what borough is highest? Take a guess. Staten Island, 4.4. Queens, 3.7. Brooklyn, 3.7. Bronx, 3.3. Manhattan, 2. New York City 7-day average, 3.3, is the lowest it's been in over 4 months. You have to go back to December 1st. So that is all good news. Statewide 7-day average, 3.1, is the lowest in the past month. Vaccines, we've done 12.5 million shots in arms. 5 million New Yorkers have been fully vaccinated. 39% of New Yorkers, 7.8 million, have gotten at least one dose. We are still aggressively pursuing vaccinations and encouraging New Yorkers to get them. They can go to the website or they can call 1-833-NYS-4-VAX. The vaccines only work if we take them. I said this morning, I've said in the past, it is a civic duty, in my opinion. You take the vaccine not just for yourself, you take it to keep other people safe. Everyone's aware of the situation with J&J. I spoke to Dr. Fauci and Dr. Walensky yesterday, CDC head. It is a peculiar situation. Europe went through it with AstraZeneca, but out of 6.8 million J&J doses, they have 6 people, women, who had an adverse reaction. One of the women passed away, but that is literally 1 in 1 million, right? So your chances of dying of COVID are much higher than your chances of getting sick from a J&J vaccine. They explained that the reason they did the pause on the J&J vaccine was to notify healthcare providers that the normal protocol did not work in this situation. That if a person comes in, says they have a serious headache, took a vaccine, the doctors diagnose a clot, they normally give an anti-clotting medication called heparin, and that does not work in this situation. So they wanted to pause so they could communicate with the healthcare community. And it was open as to how long the pause would be. They also wanted to find out if there were other people who were affected that they just hadn't heard about yet. Duante Wright situation, this makes a point that has been made too many times in this society, in this country. It's a tragic result of a flawed system that devalues the lives of black men and women, which is too quick to violence. And it once again points out the underlying tension between policing and members of the community. Now, New York has been the most aggressive state in the United States of America in addressing this. This is not just a policing problem. This is a social problem. And it is something that has to be resolved. You need to resolve the tension between the police and the community. You don't have an option of ending the police. That's not an option. And you don't have the option of continuing with distrust of the police. So the relationship has to be repaired. And nobody's been more aggressive about that than New York State. And I'm very proud of that. Over 90% of the state's jurisdictions have submitted police reform plans, which were done in a collaborative with the community and passed by the city council. And now we're going through the plans now, and we'll have more to talk about next week on this. But some jurisdictions did better than others. They all made an attempt, and they all took a first step. And we'll review them, and then we'll go through it. I was at Belmont Racetrack today. There was a fire in one of the barns. 2 horses perished. The good news is they got out 58 horses. So they did an extraordinary job. It's sad about the 2 horses, but the fire department and the racetrack personnel did a good job in getting out 58. The arena that is being built for the Islanders is going to be extraordinary. It's 19,000 seats. It will be one of the largest in the country, and it will be one of the largest hockey arenas that is built as a hockey arena. They play hockey in many arenas, but very few are designed for hockey. So here the sight lines, the visibility, the ability for the entire audience to see the game is really extraordinary. The arena can also be used for music and concerts, and it's going to be done by the end of this year. But it's going to be a source of pride for Long Island. I remember when the Nassau Coliseum was built. You know, Long Island, I'm a Queens boy, as you know. The source of identification of Long Island as a region and not just an annex from New York City. The Nassau Coliseum did that. It was their Coliseum. At that time, you also had the Nets. But this is going to be an arena for the Islanders, and there's an accompanying large retail development, entertainment development, hotel development. So it's really going to be a major and economic engine for all of Long Island. And the Islanders are doing very, very well. I don't want to pick any favorites, but the Islanders are having a great, great season. So we took a tour of that facility, and we're very excited about that. But part of it is the auto and horse racing season is starting. The racing season starts at the track at Belmont Friday, April 23rd. We're updating our guidance for horse and auto racing in New York. Effective next Friday, April 23, spectators will be allowed at auto and horse races at 20% capacity for outdoor events. And that will be in line with our guidance for other professional sports events. the health and safety protocols that apply to sports events, face mask, social distancing, proof of completed immunization or recent negative test will apply here also. As the numbers are down on COVID, we talk about adjusting the valve between economic activity and economic constraint, depending on how we're doing with COVID. We're going to extend the 11 p.m. curfew for food and beverage to midnight. That will go into effect Monday, April 19th. For catered events, it will go from midnight to 1 a.m. But at the same time, we caution New Yorkers, don't get cocky. The disease is still very much with us. You see it escalating in some states. You see it escalating in some countries. So we have to stay smart until COVID is crushed, and it won't be crushed until we get herd immunity, and we won't get herd immunity until we finish vaccinating everyone. And that's where we are. Last note, the Indian Point is going to close. For me, that has been probably 25 years of effort. Closing Indian Point was at one time one of the main progressive causes in this state. It's not being against nuclear power. We have nuclear power plants in this state. It's that Indian Point is the nuclear power plant that is located to the most densely populated area on the globe. So number one was the location of Indian Point. Number two was the safety factor of Indian Point. I remember post 9/11, there was a lot of discussion about vulnerability for New York City, New York State, and one of the points that kept coming up was what could happen if Indian Point was a target of an attack. It is like 30 miles from New York City. The evacuation plan for the region is virtually impossible, right? The Westchester County emergency plan at that time was to give everybody an iodine pill. But the area is so dense that a meaningful evacuation plan is virtually impossible. We are now moving forward with the most aggressive renewable plan in the country for this state. But safety was the main issue with Indian Point. And it has been a very long road. I took it up as Attorney General with Entergy. We went back and forth. But the day has finally come. And people in downstate New York will be the safer for it. That is inarguable. The same argument that they made 30 years ago, they still make, well, nuclear is clean. Yes, and we have nuclear power upstate in different locations, but you don't put nuclear power on top of one of the most densely populated regions on the globe. Let's take some questions. Operator?
Certainly, sir. At this time, we would like to take any questions you might have for us today. As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. We have our first question from the line of Andrew Sif from WNBC TV. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. I have two questions. One is, has anyone from Attorney General James's office or her investigators sent you personally a subpoena or asked for an interview from anyone from the executive chamber? And the second question is, on March 3rd, what you said was, quote, I never knew at the time I was making anyone feel uncomfortable at the time, and I certainly never ever meant to offend anyone or hurt anyone. I'm wondering, given those words, is it fair for New Yorkers to conclude that you spoke in a similar manner to the way you spoke to Charlotte Bennett on other occasions with other female employees in your office?
Okay, let's do both questions. Your second question, I have no idea what you're talking about. I said I never meant to offend anyone. Is that true in other conversations? Yes, I never meant to offend anyone. I generally don't mean to offend people in conversations. People can take offense, even though I don't mean offense. They can do that to anyone. But I did not intend to offend anyone. Have I had conversations where I have intended to offend people? Yeah, but not with my staff, normally with reporters. But yes, the general statement is true. I did not intend to offend anyone. That doesn't mean in human interaction, a person can't walk away from a conversation and say, I found that Andrew Stiff offensive. You could say, I didn't mean to be offensive. Sorry if I was offensive. I didn't mean it. But I can take offense from what you say, right? I could take offense from what you just said. You could say, I didn't mean to offend you. All right, so there's two different factors. On the Attorney General's review, you should ask the Attorney General's office. It would be inappropriate for me to comment on the Attorney General's review. And I would said that many times when I was Attorney General. Next question.
Thank you. Your next question comes from the line of Chris Hovertitz from WIVB. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Governor. Yesterday, the Erie County Executive said that it's his plan to allow full capacity at the Bills Stadium at Highmark Stadium with all fans requiring a vaccination. I'm wondering if that is your line of thinking as well, and also wondering what you think about the county executive saying that he can implement it without the state's approval.
Yeah, I don't think the county executive is legally correct. But besides that, we tend to work in a collaborative with local government, and we're just not there yet to make those decisions. I was with the Islanders today. You know, it's going to be the same question all across the board. What do you do with sports attendance when you get down towards the end of the year and the seasons restart? And I think you have to see where you are, right? Things change so quickly. You know, where are you going to be in 4 months? I'll tell you in 4 months. If the immunization all goes right, if there's no variants of interest, if, God forbid, there's not another virus or pandemic. So I just think it's early to make a decision months ahead. Legally, the state would have to sign off on it. Practically, we tend to do it as a collaborative. Beth, is that right? Rob, is that right?
Yes, Governor, that's correct. And I think what the county executive was speaking of was, you know, aspirationally looking towards fall. And to your point, it is still very early to be making those kinds of assessments.
But what did the county executive, I think, said something like he would hope that everybody would be immunized, and if everybody were immunized, then everybody could go to the game, which is also true. If everybody's immunized, then, and by the way, there's no variant of interest, and the vaccinations work the way we hope they're going to work. If everybody's immunized, then theoretically we're back to normal. If I've been at this, I have too much experience to try to guess what 4 months down the road looks like. I think the past year has taught us that. Next question.
Thank you. Again, as a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. We have our next question from the line of Hank Gross from Mid-Hudson News Network. Please go ahead.
Governor, how are you today?
Good. How you doing?
Good, thank you. 2 questions. I'll ask you the easy one first. Off-track betting offices are still closed. When do you anticipate they could reopen?
That's the easy one? That's a hard one. I don't even know. Beth, Rob, anybody?
Off-track betting offices were never specifically closed. So certainly to the extent that we had very limited racing occurring, I think that there was very little for individuals to place wagers on at the height of the pandemic. But we will circle back with the department on, any specific guidance that they should be following.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. We didn't close the OTB. It's that racing closed.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe that they voluntarily discontinued.
Huh. Good point.
Okay. And, Governor, the other question, cannabis is now legal to possess in small amounts, but there are no stores, no dispensaries currently set up. So it appears to me that anybody who would buy it is buying it from illegal sources. So is that something we need to correct legislatively?
Beth, it's another tough question. What's your answer to that?
So certainly there are many medical dispensaries. The registered organizations are currently operating for anyone with a medical card within New York State, and we have also, in many of our border states, legal adult use cannabis, which can now be legally purchased across the state border and consumed within New York State.
Good answer.
It was hard to hear. Are you saying that, for instance, you could go to Massachusetts where it's legal, buy it at a dispensary, and bring it back to New York?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. But right now, if you live in Buffalo, for instance, you're not going to drive to Massachusetts to buy it. So do we need to amend the current law to perhaps allow the medical dispensaries to start selling it to the general public, or do some other mechanism to get it legally operated? Because I would imagine if you want to buy it, your 3 ounces or less, you're going to go to the person on the street, which makes it illegal to purchase.
The law was carefully crafted to have a lead-up time before we would authorize these dispensaries. One of the top priorities of the adult use legislation was to stop immediately discriminatory policing that has been occurring for decades. However, the registered organizations are not going to be expanded into adult use until there are permits available and licenses available for other dispensaries as well. We have an entire office of cannabis management that is currently being set up. And like with many statutes, there is a lead time before it will be fully operational. And so for individuals who do not want to take a trip to purchase it legally, they can wait for New York State to be able to offer that, in the next, I think we're targeting 18 months before those dispensaries will be operational in the state.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Operator, let's take one more.
Yes, sir. We have our last question from the line of Morgan McKay from Spectrum News. Please go ahead.
Hello, Governor. How are you?
Good, Morgan. How are we doing?
Good. So 2 questions for you here. Last time we spoke, you said that your office was following protocols to protect the 2 women who have accused you of inappropriate behavior. However, one of the women came out recently in a Times Union and said she's lost weight, she's being treated differently in the office. So what are these protocols, and is there a way to protect them? Obviously, you can't stop people from giving mean looks, but how would you hope that they're being treated? And second, last year you outlined a phased reopening hinging on infection rates. We've been doing this sort of day-to-day things, such as the 11 p.m. curfew announced today. Are you planning to do sort of a phased reopening as we head into the summer months to say, hey, you know, in June we're going to be fully reopened, or whatever the case might be?
Morgan, the problem of projecting into the future is the future is not that predictable. I wish we could do that, frankly. I wish we could say, okay, here we are now, mid-April, and then in May this, and then in June this, and then in July that. The whole point of the valve graphic was you are fully dependent on the COVID rate. And you can hypothesize about what the COVID rate is going to be down the road. You can guess, but nobody knows. Nobody knows. And nobody knows because a major factor is human behavior. I mean, look at this whole post-holiday surge, right? We talked until we were blue in the face going into the holidays. Be careful, be careful, be careful, be careful, right? They made fun of me. I was Scrooge, right? They had those pictures of me looking in your window for Christmas to see how many people were gathering, right? And what happened? People gathered, and the infection rate went off the charts. And then we had to recover from that. Where are we now? If people continue to get vaccinated, if we continue to supply, if the hesitancy problem can be overcome, you know, we do not yet know, Morgan, what % of people will wind up saying, I'm not getting a vaccine, right? We're just not there yet. We haven't gotten to the point where we're at the refusal rate, if you will. Also, you have some states that the numbers are going back up again. And you have countries where the numbers are going back up again. So you can't really do that phased schedule. And that's why it's not day to day, but it's as the number changes. Now, you've had the major curve was starting December 1, and then it went up through the holidays, right? So it went really Thanksgiving. December up, late December up, early January up, mid-January up, and then it starts to come down. So you follow the curve of the infection rate. Now, sitting here today, you can say, well, people are going to get the vaccine. We're doing a phenomenal effort on vaccine education and promotion. We're doing this Vaccinate New York campaign ad. The federal government is doing campaign ads. We're doing churches, all these community groups. Hopefully, people take the vaccine. Hopefully, we have a small hesitancy population. But, and hopefully, we don't have any other issues with supply of the vaccine. But can I sit here and say what's going to happen when the Bill season opens up or when the Islander season opens up? No, but I don't think anybody can, Morgan. And we learned that lesson the hard way. On the legal situation on people who make complaints, obviously, my hope is that everybody treats everyone with respect and professionalism and collegiality. But on the law of it, I would ask Beth.
Yes. So obviously there is zero tolerance for any retaliation, and we have been in communication with the attorney for this individual. And to the extent that they have concerns, they're certainly free to reach them with us directly. And, beyond that, we are not going to detail any specific protocols, as it could tend to identify people who have not wanted to be identified to this point.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much. It's a beautiful day out there. Go enjoy it, and make sure you tell everyone you see, get a vaccine. It's their civic duty. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye.
This concludes today's conference call. Thank you for participating. You may now disconnect. Have a great day.